In today's scriptures, you will notice something very interesting perhaps. In our first reading, Peter talks about how he had a vision to call the Gentiles to God. The psalm is the psalm of baptism. This psalm is only ever used when there is a baptism occurring, but it is used today because of the first and the gospel. In the gospel, where Christ talks about being the good shepherd, he talks about a separate flock that must be brought into the fold. That separate flock are all non-Jews that he is bringing into his flock. Because originally it is only the Jews that were called. But Jesus, he knew that all were to be called into his ministry. All were to be available and able to enter into his Christian church. And so he, the Good Shepherd, went out and sent his assistant shepherds to call all these other sheep into the flock. The greatest assistant shepherd was Paul. He who persecuted so greatly, he brought the greatest number of non-Jews into the Christian church, because he went afar the greatest. He went to Asia, he went throughout Greece, and he even went to Northern Africa. Our lesson today is a reflection on concreteness. As Christians, we are called to concreteness, since we cannot be in union with Jesus and walk in darkness. We cannot be in a grey area between the two. We choose to be in the light, to live in the truth, and to be honest, denying the power of darkness, the lies and dishonesty that evil uses to call to people. The danger with the grey area is that the grey makes you think that you're walking in the light, because you're not in the darkness, and this soothes you. The grey area, in this sense, is treacherous. It grows darker gradually, without you noting the change, just like the pot growing hotter, until it's too late for the frog. If we say we are without sin, we deceive ourselves. However, we tend to admit that we are sinners out of habit, in the same way that we say good morning. But we often do not express the concreteness that should accompany the admission of our sinfulness. The truth is always concrete, as opposed to lies that cannot be defined. Being concrete involves saying, I did this, or I thought this way, and not trying to excuse, rationalize, or justify ourselves during confession. Little children have the gift of being concrete. Sometimes it is their downfall. They haven't yet the ability to see anything but the concrete. But this grace of the concrete, as we've discussed before, is the reason that Jesus blessed the Father for hiding these things from the learned and the clever and revealing them to the little ones. During confession, the simplicity of children makes them say things as they are. They may tell you the whole story of what occurred, but if you caution them to tell you only the truth, they'll tell you every little thing that occurred, leaving nothing out. Concreteness brings us to humility, because humility is concrete. To say that all of us are sinners is abstract. When we admit that we are sinners, we should be able to give the reason for that admission, in what manner we sinned most recently, or the most frequent sin. For instance, my most frequent sin is the lack of humility or pride, and for that I work very hard, but it inevitably bites me on the button at least once a day if I've opened my mouth. In that way, we feel the reality of our sins, and we come to Jesus for forgiveness. This is the true attitude of a sinner. The spiritual life is not complicated, but what we make it so is created a lot of shades of grey. The devil wants us to be tepid and to live in the grey area that is neither cold nor bad, white nor black, neither hot nor cold. When in the grey area, you are not passionate about your faith. You aren't speaking about, you aren't actively living it, because it's just kind of meh. We therefore need concreteness so as to not become liars. Just like Peter after the miraculous catch of fish. Concreteness should move us to recognize our sin and say, "Leave me, Lord, for I am a sinful man," as I said when he gave me this my great gift. Let us ask the Lord for the grace of simplicity, that he might grant us the grace that he gives us to be simple, and the children who say what they feel, even if it is wrong. May we all know concretely who we are before God.